Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Blue Dragon 5 here.
And Rohith Dar.
And we're back talking about another MCU movie. We're talking Captain America, Brave New World.
Mm-hmm.
So Rohit, you've just freshly come out of the theater, having seen this film. And I've just stayed on it a wee bit. How do you feel?
I feel nothing for this movie. I think ultimately it takes every element of the Winter Soldier and does a lesser version of that component. I think this film is a disservice to Anthony Mackie as an actor. I think this film doesn't do right by the Captain America franchise. I think the way this movie is constructed and executed doesn't do right by of the legacy of Marvel. And I think ultimately, after a few years, I think once the Marvel Studios wraps up the saga and launches with the X-Men, I think Kevin Feige needs to have a plan of a future successor because I think the way of doing things has run out of steam. And I think this film is very indicative of the many problems that people have with Kevin Feige and his way of running Marvel Studios.
Okay, so not quite feeling it then.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so here's the thing. So I was, I was hyped for this purely based on, back when they announced like the Disney Plus shows. The show I was hyped for was Falcon Winter Soldier because obviously I have a vested interest in the Captain America films, a lot of love for them, and the Steve Rogers era of Cap. I loved Anthony Mackie's inclusion in those films as Sam Wilson. In that regard, especially after seeing Falcon Winter Soldier and seeing him kind of become Captain America, I was very invested in his success in the role and just kind of the success of him going forward in that role. So after many embarrassing delays and reshoots and tweaks, etc., um, we finally get the film. We finally get Brave New World after it's going through a name change and God knows what else. Here's the thing. So I'm sick of like the review bombing before a movie gets released. I just want to make my own determination. I don't want to have to like a giant gloom and doom over the movie. But I want to be able to kind of assess it on my own, or at least not go in with and people feel this way about it. I mean, here's the thing. Here's where I come out of this movie. I think overall, I like this thing. Doesn't remotely measure up to the Steve Rogers trilogy, or the stuff that we've done with Cap. I think it's. I mean, for what I will say, it's refreshing to get kind of like a movie that's a hair under 2 hours for the MCU. I mean, for a change, that's kind of refreshing in itself. But here's the thing: one of my critique of this movie is that there are missed opportunities that are the kind of thing that you don't want to like kind of think about when you're watching the movie. It's the kind of thing you kind of want to maybe discover once you kind of like start to really overthink it. Well, not overthink, but you know what I mean, like kind of go over it with a fine tooth comb after you've seen it that first time, or like think back to it or see it or do a rewatch or what have you. I mean, frankly, it feels like the marketing pulled a bit of a Sony move, and we really spoiled the climax, which I think would have really jazzed people about the movie had we just kind of built it up and just kind of shown it like in the movie and used like the traditional Marvel cloud of secrecy and actually kept some things hidden. We didn't really do that this time around. It feels like maybe marketing on the Red Hulk was kind of more of a desperate move than kind of the fun reveal it probably should have been. I guess overall, it's just my hope was that this and Daredevil Born Again would be the thing to prime the audience for Fantastic Four, and then would be kind of the revitalization of things for the MCU. And after seeing this film, it definitely seems like it's all falling on the shoulders of Daredevil Born Again, which is kind of what I've been saying since Deadpool and Wolverine. Like that's the one we knew one way or either way. Deadpool and Wolverine was going to go well. It was going to be, because again, it's separate enough from everything else, and it's built on people enjoying the Deadpool movies that it was going to work out no matter what happened. So it was definitely the palate cleanser. And Daredevil Born Again is like, okay, this was always money on the table. They had to spend that, they could always like, guys, let's just continue the one of the biggest successes we've ever had that we never just took ownership of, which hopefully will pan out the way that my things seem to be kind of like looking, like the tea leaves seem to be predicting on that one. But yeah, this was my hope. Like this will go well, at least well enough, and then then we'll have Thunderbolts probably maybe doing that as well. Then ultimately, Fantastic Four will be the big determination for the MCU of the year, and then all that follows will be, man, we're on a good path here. But yeah, this isn't going well. It's very a lot of the kids might say mid. I would say just I mean, look, there are things I like about it. There are things that I'm kind of scratching my head at with it, but I don't think it was. I don't think it was like a bad film, but I do feel it was a flawed film, and I feel Falcon the Winter Soldier probably handled it better, and kind of like the next Sam Wilson story a little better than this. But again, there's kind of column A and column B between the two of those, but either way. So I liked it. Definitely didn't love it.
I think the fact that both of us being as big of fans of the Captain America films, especially the Winter Soldier, with us feeling this way, I think that's a real problem for Marvel.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's definitely
you and I, depending on the projects, both in the Multiverse Saga, we have at least praised and appreciated efforts to step outside the box, do something interesting, and I think certain projects have been overhated compared to other. But I think in Phase 5, with Secret Invasion and this, the grounded section of the MCU needs to actually have some level of bravery when dealing with real world events. And I think this movie was definitely hampered by an aversion of depicting or having a pointed commentary of the reality that we occupy.
Yeah. At the very least, it felt like it didn't have like a strong. It felt like maybe like it barely scratched the surface on it, and it could have really dug into things. And I think it feels like there's a desire to go there, but there's not, like they're not going for it.
Well, and
like the stuff we do with Ross, I mean, it feels like we were, it feels like we were trying to say something there. I mean, I'm not saying like direct parallels, but at the very least, we were trying to have like the muddy, kind of muddy and ugly politics that we linked to a character, and then we just kind of backpedaled it, a little towards the end.
But the thing is, like, think back to 10 or 11 years ago when Winter Soldier came out. It was a movie that made the commentary, that made the particular pointed statement that the surveillance state that was created and put into place post 9/11 to deal with security and our well-being is something that the equivalent of the Nazis would have anticipated and crafted to deal and terrify a civilian population, and that the symbol of America tore that all down. That was in a movie 11 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and it feels like over this past decade we have gone away from the Marvel motto of Marvel being the world outside your window. It feels like Marvel Studios, for some of the projects that deal with real world stuff, save with a few exceptions, it feels like we want people to either not see outside their window or to have the window be completely shut. And this movie, I think, is a really big victim of that. And considering the fact that the Falcon and the Winter Soldier had criticisms of, hey, John Walker could have been more of a pointed villain, I disagree with that. I think for this movie, General President Ross / Red Hulk should have been an actual villain. And
Yeah.
I don't think Captain
Because it seemed like we were going that way, didn't it? It again seemed like we were kind of building on that path, and then we kind of we didn't go full tilt with it.
Yeah, and the thing is, what is the movie trying to say? Like, for every Captain America movie, any movie, and even certain projects that like deal with the real world like there's a point to be made. How that point is delivered maybe is a little muddy or not as well executed. for all the crap that people have of Falcon Winter Soldier and the politics it engages in, I feel like the Falcon Winter Soldier is it's reaching for the stars. It's grasping to deal with really complicated issues. How clunky it is, that's one thing. The whole like speech that people make fun of that Sam gives at the end of the show, yeah, it's a little naive. It's maybe
it's well acted though.
But the show, I never thought these people didn't like want to not think about what does it mean for a black man to become Captain America.
Like it was coming from a good place, right?
Yes. And this movie, on a fundamental level, they didn't want to go further into the implications of Sam Wilson being Captain America and the fact that his antagonist is the President of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Captain America is a character that represents the American people, the American ideal. He does not always often ally with the American government. In fact, in a lot of his comics, he's always at odds with the American government. And more especially, there was a villain called the Hatemonger, or someone who's the leader of the Secret Empire, this shadowy conspiracy group. And off panel, it's revealed that the leader is none other than Richard Nixon.
I know that was how great a reveal was that?
Yeah, but think of Marvel Studios would not do something close to that. And these were comics from the 70s. And I don't know if it's Kevin Feige's hand, if it's Bob Iger's hand, Disney.
Well, I mean, as far as the movie itself, I mean, I suspect, this is a thing that we've kind of seen with a lot of the MCU movies, and I really think that this movie should have been solely written by Malcolm Spellman, because he did the work. Again, he was the show. Essentially, I forget if he was the director. I forget if he was. I know he was the writer, but he was also the showrunner for Falcon.
No, he's the head writer. Marvel didn't go and get transitioned to full-time to showrunners, the traditional model of TV, until the revamp of Born Again.
Okay, well, my point is just Malcolm Spellman. He very much was the driving kind of voice of that show, and he was on this. So again, that was the logical conclusion. Okay, so we had kind of our Falcon-driven show, and now we have kind of the Falcon to Captain America kind of arc. And main point, but we would want that same guy to tell that story, and yet there's like 3 or 4 other writers on that, and that's what I'm saying. We keep. I'm not saying it hasn't worked out well in other cases. Like for example, Ant-Man, you had a couple, definitely passes on writers and everything, but that worked out rather well. I felt, but it just the more we do that, the more it's too many cooks in the kitchen,
But the thing is, it's not even just there's too many cooks in the kitchen. It's just that like people they didn't have an idea, or maybe it's not they didn't have an idea. They were worried about what they were making, because the thing is, it's like this Secret Invasion and Falcon Winter Soldier, the grounded projects have been definitely hampered by being overly cautious and not trying to go into real subject matter that's happening along the same lines. And I think the thing is like, what is the thematic point of this movie? What is it trying to say about our world or politics or just anything in general?
I mean, I think the point of the movie is that, we want, well, at the end of the day, I think we want like our leaders to take responsibility for mistakes. I think that's what the driving point of the movie is, but I don't think the rest of it necessarily supports that end point.
But does President Ross?
Well, I'm not saying we did it well, but I'm saying I think it's what they were trying to get at.
It's like the nuance, so Jacob makes the point about there being nuance thing of Ross. I don't know if it's literally that it's nuance or it just feels like this movie is heavily reshot, and it is very easy. It is very telling where certain lines that are said off screen, and that's easily ADR, and like the flow of action is just a little choppy. It feels like to me that's less that Ross is nuanced or the movie make him a nuanced way. It's more like the movie doesn't know where to land on Ross. And then just as things get closer, they decide to just haphazardly land on, okay, Ross is a good guy, or someone who's like well-meaning, but is kind of being manipulated. And it's like, President Ross took a guy who didn't fight and like destroy Harlem.
And technically, Ross created the guy. He basically, the Stearns made him worse, but Ross created the guy.
No, but like he jailed a guy who had
Mhm.
nothing to do with the destruction of Harlem, made him a
Mhm.
scapegoat, and then manipulated him to create technology, do all these innovations, and you know, in like a shadowy, like offsite base, under the false promise that he'll get her released. And when he becomes president, he doesn't get released, and somehow Ross is forgiven because he resigns from his presidency after nearly destroying all of DC. Like in the real world, if anything were to at all happen, if anything from this movie happened in the real world, this would not be, oh, this is a joyous moment where a leader takes accountability. This would be like Watergate when Nixon stepped out of office. It was a national tragedy. It was showing, hey, our leaders have truly fallen. This, like, Raj should be a pariah in American history for what he's done.
Well, yeah, like I said, look, there's a lot I want to say about Ross, but I think we should maybe just kind of build. Also, the folks in the comments again, I feel where Jacob's come from on Ross, and there are things I like about Ross. I don't think they fully tie together, much like Rohit saying. I just want to maybe build to it a little. So I want to just kind of like there's some other things I want to direct us to, but we're definitely gonna cover all the Ross of it all. Okay.
Okay.
I guess this sorry. Here's what I want to address this broadly because it ties into kind of the MCU in general with like what the mission statement was Phase 4 onward. Okay, so the way we open the movie essentially on like we have like the news recapping the MCU events and the Ross recasting, and we established the Celestial, the whole Tiamat, island, the Celestial Island thing, and our new Captain America. Now, a few things here. Again, this is kind of the again, this is sort of like we're kind of we need to recap. Sorry. When Phase 4 was announced, the idea is okay, we're going to have shows and we're going to have movies, and you won't have to watch the shows as homework for the movies. Then we get Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, and clearly, we needed the show on that one. And that's always kind of the fine balance they're trying to get here. So this movie does feel like kind of like a take on like, okay, we do want to make it like kind of self-sustaining in itself without having to have watched Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And I think overall it was successful at that, with one major exception: the way we handled Isaiah Bradley, which I have a lot of thoughts on that. But it's just over. I do appreciate that we are just from the opening movie, we are economizing a little bit of that in kind of an economic fashion. Also, I love the Ross recasting thing in terms of like we show him with the mustache, it just kind of retroactively. Okay, so it was probably this is kind of what it would have felt like, and then we're going to acknowledge the loss of the mustache. I know it's a small thing, but it's always like that thing with the Red Hulk. Like, why isn't the Red Hulk have a giant mustache?
Mm-hmm. I mean,
Sorry,
it was like a cutesy moment, but yeah. It's just the thing that kind of makes it. Like, we start off with Ross, and it's interesting to start with President Ross. It's like, oh, we're going to be unite together. And I feel like there's a version of this movie where when it starts with President Ross, there's a certain level of like menace underneath his speech. Do you get what I mean? Where considering like all the political thrillers of the 70s, and this movie's trying to like make itself out that way, considering there's no Marvel Studios fan from the beginning, it just feels weird to have a movie where, oh, you can't trust anyone, like the president's circle has been compromised, and somehow the president is like a victim in all this. And like the leader is really the antagonist, but it's not like
he's barely an antagonist at the end of the day. He's basically trying to say, "Look, the president did really shady things." He's basically he's deep. He's what did we just call? Sorry, it's like in Watergate. It was Deep Throat, right?
Yeah, Deep Throat was the leak.
He doesn't say Deep Throat. Basically he's playing Deep Throat essentially. Here's the thing: the problem with the leader in this, well, there's a couple things, but the main issue with the leader is that he has a point, but he is unnecessarily killing people he doesn't need to deliver that point.
You know what's also interesting? He doesn't refer to himself as the lead. You know what's crazy? You had a prime opportunity to where you had a movie where maybe President Ross is being manipulated by like the lead, by like Samuel, and you could have said, "What are you? What are you really? I am the leader." And that the leader of the free world, that would have been so cool.
You're right. No, and you're right. That would have been really cool. And this is what I'm talking about. There were missed opportunities like that in the movie. But just real quick. Again, I love a cap of the people. I love the way of Sam Wilson's being recognized in bars and stuff, and just like there's a lot of respect that Sam Wilson gets, and there's a lot of trust there. Um, we get the usual kind of actiony opening that the Captain America sequels give us. We see Sam and Torres kind of in the in action. So kind of Cap and the new Falcon taking on Serpent Society, which then brings us to another some of the reshoots didn't help with, but also the and by the way, the direct I feel bad for the director. I think the director's in a really bad position because he's from what I understand he's been denying like the reshoots. He's like it's not more than any other movie. Well, yeah, but there was a lot of stuff changed, man.
I mean, I'm privy to how much this movie was reshot, and also the fact that this movie was considered bad, or not good in October of 2022. This movie's been through a lot of like.
I mean, here's a big one no one's talking about that you kind of reminded me of, Rohit. Is that think about it? I'm convinced, just thinking about it now, that I think Secret Invasion is supposed to take place after this movie because I think the idea is like Ross's replacement would have been the Dylan McDermott president.
I don't know if Secret Invasion was supposed to take place after Captain Brave.
I'm just saying I can't remember at the end of Secret Invasion if we had an opening for a new president or not.
No, President Ritson was still the president.
That's the thing. So doesn't that feel like okay? So why do we? So it feels like we never acknowledged who was president before Ross, and like not that many years have happened between Secret Invasion and Brave New World.
Yeah, Secret Invasion has just become quietly decanonized, I feel like, and I think for good reason.
I mean, for good reason. I'm just saying, it just kind of makes me wonder, like, in all the shifting of things, perhaps if that was like something they kind of forgot about with everything. Like, we're focused on other things. We got.
Well, okay, you go ahead.
So with the Serpent Society. Of course, the Serpent Society in itself is kind of a fun nod to that was like kind of the false Captain America 3 we were all told about, which I thought was just their inclusion. But also, I mean, Falcon Cap. I always kind of nickname Sam Wilson Cap Falcon Cap because I think it sounds like Falcon Punch and it's kind of cool. I'm not the first, I'm sure, but anyway, I believe he has had encounters with the Serpent Society, which is it's kind of a good reason to put them in this movie, at least as like kind of a force to go up against, and basically having Sidewinder act as kind of the the Batroc the Leaper kind of foe for a recurring foe for a Sam Wilson. I think that's a good idea. I mean, I think Giancarlo, again, underutilized, but when he was utilized, he was very cool. He was pretty intimidating. I think he was someone cool for Sam Wilson Cap to go up against.
I mean, he was just doing a typical Giancarlo.
Yeah.
Basically, the thing is, it's like
more physical than he usually plays, though, which is kind of refreshing.
I mean, yeah, it's kind of funny. It seems like older actors have like the Liam Neeson syndrome, where like, oh, I don't want to play just like the smart, calculating guy. I want to play a guy who can do some action. It's like, I don't know if you're in that shape to do that much action, and you still would need stunt doubles, but that's not here or there. I really wish for the Serpent Society, they had costumes that were at least close enough to what they look like. Like freaking Batroc the Leaper had a pretty comic accurate costume.
Yeah, I know. They gave him the tracksuit with the same colors.
How have we regressed to like military fatigues? Like we feel like we're going backwards.
So that brings my next point about the Serpent Society. With that is that it feels like we didn't learn the awesome lesson from Invincible, where the Serpent Society is essentially forgettable, kind of snake themed kind of comic bunch. And in this case, like we could have actually done something with them. There's basically nameless they're mercenaries named after snakes. That's about it.
It could have easily been the Flag Smashers or any other like terrorist group from Captain America comics.
Now, I will say this, one of our good guys, Dunphy, he is in the comics. He's Demolition Man.
Mm-hmm.
And the main reason I know this, by the way, is because we have there's this lovely special I do recommend people check out. It's Lego Avengers Mission Demolition.
Mm-hmm.
It's very delightful. Anyway, it's kind of like a lighthearted kind of recap of a lighthearted telling of the Dennis Dunphy, Demolition Man origin, and it's cute. But my point being, though, apparently in the comics, I don't really know a lot about the character except from he kind of ties in the damage control, which is cool. We didn't do that here, unfortunately, but the fact is, he's a bit of he's a deep cut. He helps out Captain America, and they are kind of friendly with each other, which is why it was kind of cool to see him pop up here, at least in some regard. But in the comics, that guy had ties to the Power Brights, where he got his powers from.
Where did D-Man pop up in this movie?
Okay, so he's the bearded, friendly military guy.
That's D-Man.
That's him.
Oh, come on!
I know, right?
Lame.
Right.
Oh, that is so. And he dies in the movie.
I know. Yeah.
You gotta be kidding me. Jeez.
So that's him.
Now I'm even more annoyed at this movie.
But you see here, just with the missed opportunity there. Okay, so aside from the obvious with him, but think about this: he has powers from the Power Broker, and also knows Machine Man, who, by the way, a lot of people, and just based on the design we have with Sidewinder, if you really hold him up side to side, Giancarlo looks a lot more like Machine Man than he does Sidewinder. I don't know. This kind of makes you wonder, though. Again, we did set up the Power Broker. It just might have been like a way of paying off that. I'm already not. That was like one of the things from Falcon which I wasn't thrilled with. I didn't like turn Sharon Carter into essentially a bad guy for no reason, for no good reason. But anyway, that's a whole other ball of wax.
No, but going back to Serpent Society, like you're familiar with who was initially in the Serpent Society before Giancarlo Esposito.
Well, I know I didn't know if he was in addition to them, but I know we had a Diamondback, right? With the pink-haired Diamondback.
Yeah, there's going to be played by Rosa Salazar.
Yeah,
Smith Rollins, and that big guy that was fighting like.
I know he was one of them too. He was like Copperhead.
And like what?
The point being, we majorly dropped the ball on like any way to actually do something cool.
Only way that this group actually lives up to its serpent theme is just the two daggers that are punctured at the top of the shield, and they kind of look like fangs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. There's no other Batroc the Leaper did some leaping.
Yeah.
Maybe not that much in the Winter Soldier, but some. He did also a decent amount of leaping acrobatics in Falcon and Winter Soldier, and he got killed off. But he at least was Batroc the Leaper. Serpent is there is nothing that makes me think, why are they called Serpents? There's no tattoos. There's no chains. God, freaking
Surgeons of Hydra or anything. Nothing.
Freaking Michael Mando in Spider-Man Homecoming has a scorpion tattoo on his neck.
Well, that's the thing. He did look a lot. Apparently, the new Spider-Man show has kind of reaffirmed this to a degree. That essentially he does have a lot of the Ultimate Spider-Man Scorpion look that could be made really cool had we developed him.
Yeah, but going back to this, it's this. This just feels like the way the sequence and the look of the villains. This feels like something that would have been done not even early MCU, but in the 2000s, where people were afraid of making really comic booky superhero movies.
Well, it's just the fact they didn't have a snake-like philosophy, no lines about the snake, nothing. It was just literally mercenaries with the snake name, snake code names.
They could have been the Watchdogs.
Yeah.
They could have been anything. They could have been. Yeah. They could have just have. They couldn't have even been named. They could have been just a terrorist group. That's I
know. Anyway, okay, let's see. But again, I will say this is cool to see Torres finally get his wings and his costume and everything after we built it up.
I am not a big fan of his costume. His costume looks not good.
Well, I mean, as the first pass at it, it's basically the colors of the suit and everything, Plus, I mean, it was going to be really hard to actually give him the biological wings like you had in the comic.
Well, I mean, it's I feel like doing an approximation of that costume without having to do the full mutant bird thing, you could have done a sweet looking thing. His look just feels too similar to the Vulture's look.
Well, remember, it's the first pass. He's going to get a new costume whenever he shows up next time because he got damaged in this movie. It's the whole thing.
Man, but the costume could have been a little bit better.
I mean, I don't know. It felt like a good beginning for him because we saw what you saw what Falcon's costume was in Winter Soldier. I mean, there was room to grow and it did the job. It felt like him. This feels like he basically remember the whole point is he's using the hand-me-down costume. This is Falcon's costume.
Well, it's not Falcon's costume because Falcon's costume in Falcon Winter Soldier is he's got short sleeves and. It's
no, not that costume. And that's his. That's the refurbished Falcon costume. That's he's just using the tech and he's just kind of spray painted it.
Yeah. But outside of the costume, I just feel like Torres as a character was like, outside of good moments with like Isaiah, he just wasn't entertaining or like interesting to watch on screen. I felt he was kind of annoying at times, and I feel like when spoilers, but Bucky shows up in the movie.
Well, it's a spoiler cast.
But I don't know. But when Bucky shows up and interacts with Sam, their chemistry is just leagues better than Sam's chemistry with Joaquin.
I'm sorry, what?
I like when Bucky shows up in the movie and does his bit with like Sam. The chemistry there is just a million times better than Sam and Joaquin's chemistry, and Joaquin just doesn't feel like there is just not the je ne sais quoi, the juice as there was between like Steve and Bucky, Steve and Sam, or even Bucky and Sam.
Yeah. I mean, I like Torres, but he's not lighting the world on fire quite yet. I don't feel the same way about him that I do Sam Wilson when he was in kind of the sidekick or kind of partner role. But I mean, I don't think he did a disservice. I mean, I think I felt for him when he got hurt in honestly. But here's the thing: I felt less. I felt more for Sam kind of re-experiencing the trauma of like what happened. I believe Riley,
I mean, I guess, but it's like.
But you're right. We didn't linger on that even, though. That's the thing.
No, but I feel like if he's going to be like a supporting character, he needs to like provide support and have some some pizzazz to him. And I don't think like it's the fault of Danny Ramirez, the actor. I think Danny Ramirez is definitely like charismatic and has his like moments in like Top Gun Maverick, at least with the scenes that he's in. But this movie just like he just feels really generic. And like him talking about the Miami, like his back and all that's like, it just feels kind of tacked on. I feel like I think this movie really suffers in not having Bucky alongside Sam, because I feel like Bucky was. I appreciate that, Jacob. Bucky, I think, would have been especially relevant with the whole Isaiah Bradley of it all, and the fact that like. There's like no one immediately jumped to mind control at the start. They had to do an investigation and then determine mind control. It's like, how does that no one's first thought? We have a congressman who had a history of being mind controlled by an equivalent of Nazis for half a century.
Okay. A couple things. I want to highlight some comments because there's obviously a lot to go over. Okay, so Richard Victim says Torres sucks. They want him to be Sam was to Steve Rogers. But he's just not. Then again, I think there's definitely potential there, but we didn't. I'm going to say this. I got to give him points on this though, because a lot of the criticism I constantly hear about the MCU and just kind of superhero movies in general these days is, we keep working in like the witty retort, and just kind of the quippage, and like we're always undermining like the severity of things. And this movie, I think was, for a change with the MCU, is like we're kind of going back to at least a tone, at least. I'm not saying it matches exactly, but we're going with like a tone of a Winter Soldier, like kind of a tone of what we would do in the Captain America movies. Like we're not just like
I disagree. I think this movie we
didn't really have a lot of jokes in this. What jokes did you? I mean, it was having like the lightheartedness with Bradley before everything went horribly wrong for him.
I just think the constant back and forth between Sam and Joaquin just felt annoying.
But that's like, I'm not saying it wasn't great. Sorry, I'm not saying it was great. What I'm saying is it was overall like I like that. I kind of was impressed that we didn't work in like a lot of humor all throughout the movie or anything. Like a lot of the MCU movies have kind of done really.
But the thing is, like the Winter Soldier has like good humorous moments in
it. Yeah, it does. I'm just saying we kept it like we didn't. It wasn't over. Well, a lot of people keep always critiquing the MCU, saying like, "Hey, why is there jokes? Why do we undercut like a severest moment? Like, oh yes, so you're just going to do something funny like that."
That's a misaligned criticism. I think what people are trying to get at, and this is not well communicated, is that if the humor is not of a certain quality, the more that humor, people are going to say, why is this so much of this humor? It's less of like, oh, for a movie, there needs to be X amount of jokes with X amount of dramatic moments. It's more of if the humor is not something that's funny or serves the characters, whenever there's more of the humor from scene to scene, it just detracts from the whole movie. And I think for me, it's not even that there's like a lot of jokes, just that the jokes aren't good. for the most part. I feel like there's not much like moments that like, oh, this is really funny or something like. I feel like the only time when humor is done well is when it's like Sam and Isaiah or Sam, Isaiah, and honestly, I feel like Joaquin really shined as a character when Isaiah was in the picture because I feel like Isaiah kind of could put him in his place and like
Well, let me make the text on your phone bigger. That's funny.
No, but that's what's like relatable, like humor, generational back and forth. And I feel like after that, it was just like really generic, like action comedy dialogue that just like the humor among the three of them with Isaiah Bradley, it felt from a character place. But oftentimes the humor in other scenes is like, okay, this is just like you're just trying to do the typical action like hero, like bits of retort or like sarcasm or whatever. And it just didn't land with me.
All right, so just with the whole mind control thing, so Rohit, this was a fear I really did have going into the movie. It was one thing because, again, on one hand, I love Isaiah Bradley. I thought he was like one of the best things, one of the best parts of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I was going into it like hearing he might be in it and hoping that he would be in the show because that's a really great story from the comics and just it's a very impactful story and very much something that a personal thing that Sam Wilson would have to deal with, which is just a great idea to kind of have that character deal with that story. And of course, the ending always like like for example, the end of Falcon Winter Soldier with now they'll never forget you. That that's on par with me. Like that's what I want from like how Captain America Winter Soldier makes me feel. Like that was kind of Sam's equivalent to that. So that moment always like gets me in the feels, which is what I want from Captain America movie. So Isaiah's inclusion in this made sense, and I wanted, and that was very much like the Malcolm Spellman kind of quality, kind of coming into the movie. So I'm a fan. So with that, I still, but you weren't there for the debate because we used your question, by the way.
Okay.
Anyway, so my answer to it would have been, seriously, Marvel presentation. I just want to see, period, because I want to see the tragedy of Isaiah Bradley as a short or something. I want to explore it because it's so interesting, and we talked it up and compellingly, and nothing wrong with that. But it's like, if we could see it though, that would be amazing.
I feel it'd be really depressing though, and I feel like it'd be
but that's what I'm saying. Like depressing, it's still could be very artfully done. It would be could be a really good story to tell though.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so the point being, so Isaiah's inclusion. Aside from just like part of me, like I told you, my wildest dreams of maybe would have like a brief flashback to what he went through in this movie somehow. But one of the big missed opportunities for here, and I think that this is where like the film really starts. The beginning part when the film goes off the rails is where we kind of get introduced to Ross and everything. Is that the trip to the White House, it is a big missed opportunity that our reintroduction to Isaiah Bradley wasn't, Sam either abdicating, to Ross to you give him a pardon or like a public apology, or basically like in general feels like at the bare minimum, Bradley should have been invited to the White House by Ross, either as like part of the leader's machinations to kind of make this international incident happen, kind of get the wheels going, or at the very least, just Ross just trying to do something either for publicity or just genuinely trying to right a wrong. It feels like Bradley, he's at the White House for no good reason. It just feels like, it's. I know the leader can calculate probability, and that's ultimately what the actual explanation would be, but it still feels like, hey, just Sam inviting to the White House on a whim is just super, super convenient. And just with Isaiah Bradley's inclusion in this film, this is where I'm getting at with the whole, like, the homework of the Disney Plus shows, where the way in which we sum up, like, oh yeah, I was in prison for 30 years. I mean, I don't know. It just feels like we have a really good in that fits the plot of the movie that, okay, so we should have like Ross or at the Captain America Museum or something just to recap the sad story that he's been through and how it's been kind of righted since.
Maybe Ross could have done, maybe for a political move, he could have like brought in Isaiah Bradley and gave him like a Medal of Freedom.
Yeah.
Something like that's where you can do interesting stuff with.
You see what I mean? Like,
but then because the thing is, it's like Ross never has any direct interactions with Isaiah Bradley. And I feel like that's a missed opportunity considering these are both men.
Like we should show, okay, so he doesn't trust him, but he's taking it more of just like a face value thing. But we're,
No, it's more just like these are two guys that have both veterans and around the same age.
Mm-hmm.
One of them saved their men, saved their comrades, saved their brothers in arms, and he went to jail for 30 years, whereas one guy went on to be a decorated general who hunted a individual who got irradiated through a experiment to try to resurrect the super soldier serum.
Yeah, which ties into Isaiah clearly, you know.
Yeah. And then basically tore the Avengers apart as Secretary of State with Sokovia Accords, and then got blipped, came back because of the Avengers, and is now doing an about face and is basically the president, and he's all kumbaya and is wanting to bring back the Avengers, and there's no one questioning his motives about this.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Things. So again, my fear was that we're going to do basically, I guess the most easy criticism the film gets lobbed against the film, and it's essentially justified. But again, I'm trying to find kind of a light in the darkness for a lot of this, mind you. But essentially, the criticism is we're basically doing almost all the story beats, or at least a lot of the story beats from Captain America: Winter Soldier, just which takes away from all the stuff we could be doing in the movie and could be doing with Sam Wilson. Of course, we've given him his own version of Bucky with Isaiah Bradley, with the whole mind control thing, and it's very clear. Anyone who looks at that security footage can tell, as we saw in the movie, well, clearly he's been mind controlled. And yes, earlier John Kelling said the fact that Ross just laughs this off. It's like, again, there's everything. The whole reason the Avengers, in part, he was like the nail in the coffin. It wasn't the whole reason the Avengers got torn apart. But again, he was very much like an active, he was like the last straw or something in that whole conflict of Civil War. The fact that, we were going after Barnes, and that's kind of what put Cap on the government's bad side, I think it would stand the reason. Maybe we should consider the brainwashing thing. Maybe plus, everyone heard the Mr. Blue song playing.
Also, were the other people that shot at President Ross, were they all actual conspirators?
Well, that's the thing. Remember, we saw later on he had all these guys were marked, including Isaiah Bradley, and so they were all flashed on their phones.
No. What I'm saying is, if people are accusing Isaiah Bradley of willingly wanting to kill President Ross because of his,
well, they were all in prison. They were about to be interrogated
about that. No. I'm finished. No. It's okay, Isaiah Bradley, a guy who's been basically a hermit for decades, somehow he has this reserved hate for the U.S. government and manifests through killing President Ross, who has no involvement with that whole thing. And he's someone to be able to convince a bunch of other random dudes to join him in this conspiracy. Do you see where for an average person, it's how do you should not think that there was an actual conspiracy?
Yeah.
In the sense that these people willingly, especially people all across different areas of the government and the military, y'all thought they willingly chose to attack the president at this time and not any other time before or after?
Plus, here's the thing that, mind you, you saw the movie, so maybe you can confirm this for me. Was when Isaiah shot at him, did you see Isaiah, he charged the guy and took his gun, or did Isaiah just have the gun on him?
No, he went and took a gun from someone.
All right, good. That makes sense to me. It's what I wanted it to be, because initially when I was watching the movie for the first time, I kind of missed that, and I was thinking, wait, did he just he's randomly
he stands up, turns to the left, goes to the and takes his gun and then shoots at. Well, doesn't shoot at the president, which is
that's the thing, which is kind of the whole point. Okay, no, we don't want you to kill him. Otherwise, we don't have a third act. So just shoot around him, just put a fear of God into him, or stress him out.
For all the criticisms people have of the Joker's plan and Zemo's plan and Raul Silva's plan in Skyfall, they make way more sense than the leader's plan in this movie.
Yeah. All right. So getting to the. So again, sorry, real quick, some highlights of Isaiah. Then I want to get into the whole Ross of it all. I love the idea of Isaiah helping Sam measure up to the level of super soldier with the training regimen through hard work instead of the serum, which is, again, I love that idea with Sam Wilson. He had the opportunity to take the serum, and he didn't. And I think Isaiah, kind of respects that. And it's more about the man, again, it's kind of the classic philosophy of Captain America, good man before it is the serum, and what's there gets magnified. So.
But it just feels like it's retreading the stuff that's already been dealt with in the Falcon and Winter Soldier. So
well, no, that's what I'm saying. That's the weird balance they have to strike, where we have to make the show. in the movie, we have to basically pretend no one saw Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And on the
Yeah.
flip side, and then again, it's like how much of it is relying on, how much of it is not relying on. We're bringing
And
the character
pretending,
from that show here, so people I think would have questions. How does this guy have the super soldier serum?
yeah, but even then, it's like, even if you pretend somehow the show didn't exist, like what they do, like there's not really a lot of conflict with Sam, needing to get the super soldier serum. Because here's the thing, what is the value of getting the super soldier serum? It's to have the power to like save lives or whatever.
Yeah.
I feel like there could have been so much dramatic. Like, here's the thing, like President Ross, when he was general, he wanted to bring in the super soldier serum. I think it would have been very interesting to have been at the forefront where maybe Sam's inclined to do so. But the thing is, President Ross, when he's so focused on bringing that super soldier serum, having that power, then Sam could probably learn, like, hey, that power, like, if you're not 100% good, it can really corrupt you or whatever.
Yep.
And maybe Sam, in a certain sense, maybe he thinks he's not as good as Steve Rogers, or maybe he thinks that I am not focused on the power that I need. I'm focused on the power that I already have. And that, I think, would have been something to, like the whole Bucky thing about Steve gave something to believe in, whereas Sam gave something to aspire to. That, I think, should have been the through line of the movie. And maybe that's something that could have won over Ross if they wanted Ross to be like a victim in all this. But there's just there's no through line. There's no sense of, this is the point. This is what we want to say about this reality, about the world MCU or whatever, through Sam's journey. What is the ultimate? What is the lesson or things that change about Sam as a character in this movie?
Also, it would have been nice to see, Sam kind of mentor, at least interact with, Eli Bradley, Patriot. we didn't do that here either.
With the runtime we had, I don't know if
I know, but I'm just saying it was on my mind with Isaiah Bradley's inclusion.
And I don't think MCU movies being 2 hours long is to their benefit. It's a brisk pace, but I feel like the things that are issues could have been addressed with the longer runtime to flesh out and develop characterization.
Yeah. Okay, so Ross overall. So Harrison Ford. I mean, look, I think his performance-wise, I think Harrison Ford, he did good. Obviously, material didn't quite bolsterly have kind of go smoothly as it could have. But here's the thing. What boils down to is Ross is missing additional motives. We know where the movie wants him to go, where they want us to take away from Ross, but we're not. Again, big missed opportunity I had that it's like one line in the movie, and I kind of alluded this to you before without getting into it in front of people who haven't seen the trailer or stuff, but the whole adamantium of it all. So in the comics, I understand adamantium was kind of like a man-made version of vibranium, or a man-made kind of thing to kind of measure up to vibranium. Now, mind you, they didn't go that direction here, but sometimes in the movies, we've seen adamantium can also play like a meteor. So the point, something from space. So I don't mind necessarily that we did the whole celestial thing with it. It's a little weird, but I don't mind it per se, at least for argument's sake. Here's why. The takeaway that we economized down to one line, which I feel like it should be more the political context of the movie, maybe. The whole thing of we have something that could rival Wakanda. We have one line saying previously a metal like this has been given to an isolationist nation. So that to me is a very interesting idea. That what would countries outside of Wakanda want to do with a metal that has applications again for medicine, which of course for, as we kind of see with we're not going to do this in Born Again, but kind of like Bullseye perhaps, and all sorts of other stuff, Wolverine clearly on kind of the weapon side of things.
I mean, beyond just the individual Marvel characters that have associations with adamantium, just the idea of adamantium being a super powerful metal on level of vibranium, but being a widely shared metal among nations, that would have been such an interesting geopolitical change for Wakanda to deal with, because then they're not the biggest game in town.
Just when I heard adamantium is going to be in this movie, that's where my mind went to. Okay, this is it. We have kind of we have kind of the deterrent, or at least kind of not a deterrent, but the kind kind of an additional superpower to the vibranium Wakanda that was more accessible to the world.
I mean, considering how much like vibranium changed the world with like Cap Shield and all that stuff, like it's kind of, I think back to like Iron Man 2 where like Tony discovers a new element and it doesn't feel like the world changed radically from it.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like that's the thing. It's like we make these huge big innovations in the movie and we don't deal with like the long-term consequences of it. Even if not in other big MCU, not even like the same like MCU sub-franchise.
Yeah, like it basically with the adamantium thing, it feels like again surface level what we're. I think this is kind of the somewhat the point. It's the idea that it's all about like the discussion, the ownership of this new kind of game changing thing, and the fact that conversations break down around that. Basically Ross kind of botches things with Japan and everything. So I mean, I think that's kind of the point. Is like we have a game changer, but no one get on board, and so the point is like adamantium is like vibranium has very pure kind of non-war related purposes, where adamantium on the other hand, like outside of Wakanda, it's very much like this is kind of like where people's minds are going. It's about ownership, it's about all these negative things. Versus it's like it's the competition for potential versus like the actual embetterment of man and everything.
Yeah. And I think that would be interesting to
That's
see.
kind of the point, but you're right. We're not really fully delving into that, right?
It would have been interesting to see Sam having to deal with a president that's very nakedly like pro national interest.
Yeah.
It would have been interesting for President Ross to actually been gunning and like not disregarding protocol or international norms and really wanting to get that adamantium regardless of other countries' interests and whatnot. And I think that would have been, I think Sam being the guy who's a counselor, who takes the more diplomatic approach, I think that would have been an interesting source of tension where Captain America versus the best of America, someone who works with allies, tries to see common ground, having to work alongside a president that's like very, chauvinistic or very, domineering, like basically how he was as a general, but as head of the United States.
Yeah, man, I love that. I love that moment that kind of filled me with kind of hope we might have been going in a direction like that. Was we had like his friend who's in the White House, or as basically I forget if she's like the head of the Secret Service or not, but like at least one of his lead guys in the office. I don't know if it's chief of staff or not, but whoever that character was, I like that. Like Sam had eyes on the inside in kind of anticipation of that, and he had Isaiah Bradley also kind of like cautioning him that he's going to be put in a position like this. So I like that. He is like on his guard with Ross. And you're right. Had we not done a mind control plot, we might have been able to really put him in that kind of in a position like that after like that adamantium press conference.
Mm-hmm. Also, it was weird that like. I kind of wish that President Ross found out about that and like really reacted badly on it. And I feel like honestly, if imagine this, hey, Captain America has a mole inside the inner circle of the president. Like that would have been. I kind of wish if this movie was like something that was like developed long term, like something that like occurred over a period of time. It would have been so cool for Captain America, for Sam and President Ross to kind of go at each other through the press and media.
Because they clearly in the media, they can tell they don't like each other because he arrested him. He put him in jail over the Accord, so they don't like each other, and we hunted him for years.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you're right. So I mean, to Ross's credit, again, and the parts I wish were more developed with him, but again, I see the potential with him, just to highlight some of what John Kelling's saying here. I mean, on one side of it, again, I like the idea that Ross is trying to make up for past sins. He's trying to do something. He's trying to do something positive. He's basically betting the farm on adamantium and then reassembling the Avengers. It's essentially what his platform is. As far as we can tell in the movie, those are the only two good things that he has going for him. Everything else is like it's everything else is like he's just caused a lot of damage. He's going after superhumans. Mm-hmm. Making up for what he's done. Then he's trying to kind of be better in Betty's eyes.
He's trying to be better, but I just don't feel like he does it just feels like he doesn't do a lot action wise to make it seem that it's a genuine effort, right? It would have been cool if maybe the movie starts as like he becomes president, like he wins the presidency. Hello all, I appreciate being here, but in coming to this journey, there have been mistakes I have been made, and specifically. I apologize or I take accountability for what happened in Harlem. Yeah. Bruce Banner was always a hero, and I was mistaken at, and I learned from that. I was wrong. like actual like moments of accountability, and I just feel like it's not there. And so when like Harrison Ford as President Ross is like, I'm trying to change this, it's like, well, saying you wanted to, and John Kelly makes it, but there's supposed to be trying to change, actually changing, and it's like there. I feel like I could be more on Sam's side in thinking that President Ross is like not above redemption. You know, if President Ross was actually making much of a concerted effort, like the whole thing with the leader, it feels like he's not really making much. It feels like President Ross is wanting to use people, and then when he's done using people, he just kind of wants to throw them away, and that doesn't really reflect well on President Ross as a character.
Yeah,
I don't care, like why you should care that he's about him getting back with Betty, because Betty clearly sees what kind of a monster he is.
Like on paper, I love the idea of Captain America. Like, what are we gonna do for the fourth Captain America movies broadly? Okay, so Captain America going up against like the highest nation, the highest kind of position in the state, which in the country, which is going to be the president. That's kind of interesting to me. The Cap going toe to toe with the president. That's not a bad idea. It's not bad. Like on paper.
Mm-hmm.
And again, with Ross, though, I mean, the idea of like showing that Ross he's on this platform, like he's trying to do good, he's got stuff going for him, and then we find out this horrible thing that he's done to the leader. I mean, that I don't know, like I like that. And again, the direction of like going villainous with him in that regard, especially knowing that he's going to be Red Hulk, is like, okay, this kind of builds on a track of Ross just going being the full villain, where he's done a lot of horrible things, and we're going to basically physicalize the monstrous things that he's done, the really bad, shady stuff that he's done. But again, the redemptive thing, it just I like the idea of Sam using his his counsel, his kind of experience as a counselor in the field, like we kind of intimated in What If, we kind of saw him work his magic, and that's a good thing for that character to be able to do. And it's just something that it's a strength of him as a Captain America. He brings his veteran experience. Unfortunately, though, again, just it doesn't really. It kind of like it hand waves a lot of what Ross has done there. Like Ross,
it talks about redemption, but doesn't really make the concerted effort to show like. It's weird that we don't see a scene of like President Ross resigning on TV, admitting to it's all done off screen, and it's like, as an audience, if you want characters to feel that, if you want people to feel that characters seem to change and change their satisfaction, you have to show it. You can't just tell it, because then it's just like, honestly, it just feels this kind of thing in certain Marvel movies where like, oh, a character has changed or grown, but it's always kind of just more intimated off screen, and like we don't see.
It feels like Ross would have been more sympathetic, because they had the scene on the boat. We had the scene we're around the Indian Ocean, about to go to Celestial Isle and all that stuff. And we have the conversation between Sam and Ross. And essentially Ross, he admits the whole heart condition thing. Which again, it's a good idea, by the way. Is the fact that we've established, many. Well, we established in at least in Black Widow, and especially in Civil War, and I believe Civil War and Black Widow. I was going to throw in Infinity War. I don't know why I was doing that. The point being, we've acknowledged the man has heart issues, and we see him all throughout the movies taking the pills. Which again, had we not known a Red Hulk was coming, I think would have been a better kind of foreshadow. But the point being, him in a desperate move, maybe seeking out Stearns and then making him that promise. But the fact that he it just kind of like foisted all the stuff onto him. Like, for example, some of the tie-in comics have suggested, like way back, Nick Fury's Big Week, Samuel Stearns was like punched by Black Widow and then put into a shield facility. If maybe like in the tomes, like that fell to Hydra, him being the president, maybe he found out he was kept in a black site, but he chose not to free him. I think that might have been a little bit more of like a gray area of like, he's still doing something shady, but he didn't all the way back, didn't just torture this man and put him in this position. And then just he's making promises, and that am I making any sense with that?
No, but the problem is then you quite a question, like, why is the leader so gung-ho against Ross, right? Like,
yeah,
I feel like Ross has to hold this guy for it's basically the movie's trying to get that Ross represents the post 9/11 like security above everything else mindset. and doesn't commit to like, hey, this guy would probably like violate human rights, even for people that maybe are not human, but still like this guy was basically in a like mini version of Give 'Em Bay, like the leader, Samuel Stearns. And for all intents and purposes, he didn't do any like crime. Like he's one of the few villains that doesn't have like an actual history or like on-screen depiction of doing any significant violence or maladjusted actions towards anyone. He's only the bad guy because he's been tortured and held underground and never given a chance to be a free man. And yeah, like it's just, I think the movie should not have followed the structure of the Winter Soldier and be a lesser version of it. I think the movie it should have followed the structure of, or the dynamic of, is Civil War. Cap, like it should have been Sam Wilson Cap versus President Ross, and they should have been the Steve and Tony of the movie, and then the leader is the Baron Zemo of it all. Do you get what I mean? Like I think that.
Well, I do. I'm just saying. I think when you said Sam and Stearns.
No, sir. Yeah, sorry. Like yeah, because he's not the lead. He's not called a leader in this movie. He doesn't refer to himself as the leader. Yeah, so the leader should have been like Baron Zemo of the movie. And then
it feels like they want him to be both Zola and Zemo in this, because the way we introduce him is a lot like Zola, because we go to like the private black site. You said, well, not, we go to like the Camp Echo one, which essentially serves as like Camp Dave, or like like the Camp Leahy. Sorry, Camp Leahy. I meant Camp Leahy. I was going to Dave because I'm thinking of the president stuff. Yeah. Anyway, so we go there, and it's kind of like the way we reveal him. And again, we're kind of using that character against their will, because we basically digitized and put him into kind of like a computer bank. So it's kind of.
Didn't he want to become digitized?
I don't know if he.
No, he did. He specifically, I got sick, and I was worried. Like I wanted to evade death and become immortal.
Yeah, it's kind of what kind of choice is that, though?
What do you mean? What kind of choice is that? It's not like Zola was like coerced to be an AI. He wanted to be an AI.
All right.
He's a dude that wants immortality. Like villains who want immortality can achieve it in really messed up ways. So that's not like, yeah.
All right, fair point. Regardless, though, I mean, we do pull a Zemo move at the end with him, though, the whole surrender kind of thing. We're thinking about it. The leader gets exactly what he wants, and basically that was. While the leader's plan clearly has got issues, I do like the end point of the leader, where his big move is he's going to turn himself in and basically kind of blow the whistle on Ross, which is going to make him Hulk out at the big press conference. I thought that was the best part of the leader stuff for me. I really liked that.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's like.
Like, here's what they really didn't like the leader. I didn't like this random thing where it's just like he's just magically going around like, oh yeah, this is like some general's house. I'm gonna go in there, use his phone, shoot him, and I'm angry on the phone.
He goes to a random admiral's house and then is able to get in touch with the president directly. And also like his whole thing is that he was just kept underground and basically been a prisoner, and now he's going back into prison. And he's in the raft alongside President Ross, who now has like a better legacy of just him admitting to, hey, I messed up, I'll resign, and that's it.
Yep.
Yeah, honestly, whatever political party Ross was in, they are so mad at this guy. Like this guy, even though he apologized, he did all this stuff. Like this movie, if it was done better,
I think the worst thing he was doing was like he was going to let Isaiah Bradley die. He was facing the death penalty, and he was going to let him get killed off. And he knew it wasn't him, because he knew that's a question. Do you think Ross completely knows when because earlier on it suggested that maybe he knew entirely that it was mind control. He was laughing off to be a jerk. Like, what do you think?
I mean, either way, it doesn't reflect well on Ross as a person. That like,
because he's getting calls from the leader around the clock saying, "I'm coming after you. I'm getting revenge and stuff." So he knows that this is probably the leader's doing, and I think he's willfully ignoring it. It just makes it all the worse for him.
Yeah, but like, man, the thing is, with what happens with Red Hulk, this movie should have played like a tragedy. It should have been like Empire Strikes Back, where like a man who tries to attempt to be a good president turns out to be really a monster, and he's not a president anymore. This is a really this really should be a dark time in American history, where the president of the United States was personally holding someone underground, torturing, using them as like basically as like J. Robert Oppenheimer of it all, and hulked out. And I'm surprised he didn't kill any people in that rampage.
I think he killed those helicopter guys. I'm pretty sure they're dead.
Yeah, but he didn't kill. But it's like the casualties like are probably not on the level of like Harlem or like Battle of New York or anything like that. And he's did some damage. It's like this should like.
What about all the people doing the White House tour? They're dead.
Yeah, there's a bunch of casualties like from that.
People taken in the Cherry Blossom Festival, they're gone.
No, but like. It's like the movie ends with like Joaquin and Sam just like shooting quips at each other, but it's like this movie should have a more somber end, and it's like the nation's confidence should be shaken by the fact that their leader has hulked out.
I do love the gravitas of when he does hulk out and how it is kind of this shocking, baffling kind of like, oh my god, the leader of the nation has just turned into a red Hulk. Oh my god.
Mm-hmm. And John, I kind of want to highlight John Killing's the last comment. Yeah, Ross, I very much can confer.
Yeah, that's true.
God, and this movie was just so.
See, unfortunately, they can't hide the reshoots on this one because there's that. But here's the thing they can't. Like there was images released and even wrong toys released of the leader of what he used to look like. You saw that, right?
Yeah, that concept art looked way better than the actual look of the leader. Oh my god, how? Usually it's like MCU. You look at the concept art, it's like, oh, the final product is great, but like the concept art for the leader is just
it's insane to me.
Yeah,
I don't know what happened there myself. I mean, like I come so much time had passed with all this. I forgot because I've been trying to avoid what the leader looks like. I kind of forgot like. Oh yeah, there was like some concept art release when I saw leaders. Like, oh, is that what that's what they're doing?
And he looks closer to how he looks in the comics, which is like. Mm-hmm. And also, I don't know if you knew this, Dragon. There was one character that was like in an earlier version of this movie. There's an actor cast, and like he had a scene in the movie, and then he showed up in the post credits. Do you know what character that was?
I'm sorry. Can you say that one more time?
So. There was a character in an earlier version of this movie. Mm-hmm. There had an actor cast. He had scenes with Sam and Joaquin in the movie, and then he has a scene, I think, in a post-credit sequence or something like that. Do you know who that character was?
Who was that character?
Amadeus Cho was in this movie.
Oh!
And he was played by the Korean kid from Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Oh.
And the thing was that apparently the scene wasn't well received, or it was just too corny. Because like I think the kid, like they made the joke, was like, "Oh, you like about him becoming like a Hulk or something like that." And because like Amadeus shown in the comics, he becomes like
a Hulk. He's basically the next Hulk essentially.
Yeah, and it's like this Captain America movie is just it's a Hulk movie, but Hulk like Bruce Banner Hulk isn't in this. It would have been very interesting to like we had a whole episode. What if for Bruce and Sam had like this dynamic? It's like why isn't Mark Ruffalo in this movie?
Yeah, it is baffling to say the least on that one. Yeah.
It would have been really cool. Maybe you couldn't have her in She-Hulk form if you wanted to maintain the paranoid thriller of it all. It would have been cool to see Tatiana Maslany as like an attorney, maybe defending Isaiah Bradley, like in a legal proceeding or whatever. Not like it's just so you wanted a Hulk movie, but because of the weird rights situation at Universal, you couldn't do an actual Hulk movie, and so you're taking the first like feature-length film for Black Captain America and diverting some of the time energy to like continuing characters from a movie that came out in 2008.
And She-Hulk would have made sense too because she's kind of looking into kind of like a Accords law.
Sure. But the thing is like I feel like that's a disservice to Sam. Like Sam, this would be Sam's movie, his characters, his viewpoint, and this is just like Like imagine like any other Marvel movie. It's like, oh, we're just gonna include characters from another franchise to be a continuation because of like the whole rights issue. It's like, no, like do right by like the sub franchise, do right by the characters. Like this was not a legitimate Captain America movie in the way that the other Captain America movies are. And I just feel bad for Anthony Mackie. This movie is just.
I'm thinking, well, to be fair, in terms of why he's linked to the Hulk, he's linked to the Hulk because of Ross. And it's the question of like how much do we need Ross as president in this?
No. But like it's really the link between Hulk and Captain America is the whole super soldier of it all. And you could have had interesting themes about like Zemo's point in the Falcon Winter Soldier is like someone who wants to be a supremacist is not a good person. And you could have had these ideas like if you want to defend the nation, the like super soldier serum be like a nuclear weapon and like the ethics of it all and like how maybe impacts like marginalized communities with like Isaiah Bradley and all that stuff. That is very interesting stuff. The leader could have definitely factored in really well to that kind of plot. But man, this movie did not have any iota of ideas or thoughts to say on anything worthwhile. It just was like, we like Red Hulk as an action figure to do stuff, and he only has maybe 10 or 12 minutes of screen time.
Yeah, somewhere between 7 and 12.
7 to 12. Okay, you blew your load in the marketing, and now people think, oh,
which is still just that to me is the craziest. It's like, guys, if you're all look, fine, you want to save Red Hulk for the third act. I don't think that's necessarily a problem, but it feels like a big problem that if that's like. If you're banking on that being the coolest part of your movie, which even for me, in the trailer, I've mentioned this before. I just love the moment of you have Cap. I've always loved the idea of Cap versus the Hulk, which we've always kind of teased up. Even in the Incredible Hulk movie, we had a super soldier, just kind of in traditional soldier form. But the first fight with Blonsky and the Hulk, I really love because it's indicative of kind of like the Cap versus Hulk kind of thing you would have. So just here having. Cap is not even a super soldier saying, "You want me? Come and get me." That is beyond awesome to me, and I was very hyped for that.
Honestly, the action in this feels subpar as compared to the action even in the Falcon and Winter Soldier. And Anthony Mack, like Sam, it just doesn't feel. It feels weird the way he fights because he doesn't have a super soldier serum, but he's taking a lot of hits that I feel like would.
Well, he has the seeing he did not do this in Falcon and Winter Soldier. And I love that we kind of saw it here. Vibranium wings can take the they kind of take the impact and they can redirect the kinetic energy.
No. What I'm talking about, when he's having the fight against Sidewinder in his civvies, he's like he just takes like a knife stab on the top part of his torso and on his stomach,
and later on we have that stupid line where we have Kevlar Weave is like, well, no, he didn't wear the costume.
No, apparently his civilian clothes have Kevlar Weave or something like that. And it's like, dude, like, come on. Like, it just feels like there could have been so much interesting stuff with like Sam Wilson Cap being on the back foot. And that was like the whole like interviews. It's like, oh, you're gonna see Sam really struggling. It's like Sam doesn't really struggle that much. Like, I feel like Hawkeye struggles way more in the Avengers movies and in Hawkeye. Like this dude is just like doing kicks, getting stabbed. This dude is not breaking too much of a sweat.
He's doing pretty well from that. Here's the thing I love in Falcon Winter Soldier that we showed that it took a lot of practice for him to get good at that shield toss. And I love seeing that he's actually kind of mastered like the shield toss. But even so, maybe he's like tossing that shield. Maybe he's a little too good.
Yeah, it's like, do you really do this original serum? It's like.
There was a bit. Now I think they screwed up on this. There was a bit in the movie. I don't know if you just watched it. Maybe you noticed it. In that opening fight, when he's tossing the shield around, there's a bit. I forget if it's when he's fighting like the Copperhead, like the big guy, whatever the big member of the Super Set was. He grabbed I think it was during a hallway scene. He grabbed like a cinder block or something, and he threw it at somebody. That feels like that's that's kind of a super soldier thing.
I really the cinder. Oh, I've had like.
Do you remember? He's grabbed a cinder block or something really heavy and rock. Like, could you lift? Could you throw that at somebody?
I mean, I feel like you could have. I feel
with
like
one hand.
I don't know if I could throw it far and I feel like it wouldn't break as I'm like
I'm saying, like
someone with
hitting
it.
and breaking on a guy with one hand, not being a super soldier.
I kind of wish he used more of the wings, like because I think Big Bad Falcon Winter Soldier, he uses the wings a lot to like fly around and kind of like doesn't move like a regular person, but in this he just moves like a regular he moves like basically a slow version of a super soldier, which is insane to me because it's like, yeah, like you're a Captain America that has wings. Use your wings often. It just felt like they didn't want to use the wings too much because it might drive up the cost of CGI. But considering like how much this movie costs, the movie likely cost $300 million with the reshoots. And goddamn, this movie's not. It'd be lucky to make 500 million worldwide box office.
Well, it was already. I thought it's been doing pretty well in the box office.
I mean,
it made its money back in like the one weekend.
Considering the cost of this movie has to have really strong legs, and I don't think this movie has a B- cinema score. That's bad.
Yeah. All right. I just want to highlight John Kelly's been really on fire in the comments, and earlier on he's been doing some really good just kind of fact checks that are really good. Because John Kelly, I think I'm just having an off day because I do remember these moments. I don't know why I'm struggling to kind of bring them up, but yeah. I do appreciate it, though. Regardless, though, he's also, he's been very active in the comments. Just want to highlight that.
Mm-hmm.
He's saying, I could swing a cinder block with one arm.
He's not even Captain America, apparently. Well, I guess Super Soldier Serum doesn't really have to make much of a difference. I also like
I didn't like our Diet Coke Black Widow.
Ruth Betts-Saraff.
Yes, like the Black Widow that everyone knows about. No, I didn't like her. Yeah, so
I thought she was fine.
I hated her introduction. She grew on me comparatively, but I really hated her introduction. The whole the snotty, uppity, just kind of stubborn. She just walks in there and is like, "Oh yeah, we should not trust this guy remotely." It's like it was a one-on-one conversation. She comes in, and she's just like, doubt.
I mean, that's just the whole point of her character.
I know, but it's like it seems like, again, just knowing how simple the solution was to disprove it, it just feels like, really, you couldn't just pull up the footage then and there, Miss Security Lady.
If there was a different way of how that assassination could have occurred, I guess her being like critical of how things happen, even if it involved Isaiah, I think would have been given her a little more credence. Yeah.
Well, it's just like when she walked in, I thought she was a bad guy because that's just felt like, okay, so she's part of like this whole there's something wrong with your inner circle. I'm thinking, okay, geez, so what's wrong with the inner circle?
Yeah, I see what you mean. She kind of was painted a little bit like morally ambiguous.
It's very much a red herring thing, but it just felt
like it would have been cool if like the Taylor lady was actually the mole or working for the leader. It'd be like a double agent. That would have been really cool. Because then like Sam would have been like on the back foot for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, this movie, like that's the thing. It's like Winter Soldier has a big revelation about certain characters being Hydra. And this being a paranoid thriller, there has to be like major revelations of characters being involved in shady shit. And none of the characters are really like revealed to be morally questionable outside of General Ross, which is kind of insane to me. A Black Widow that scoffs the idea of mind control was genuinely hilarious. Maybe she's one of the Black Widows that joined. No, that you're right, John Kelly. I know it. Like she's a Black. I feel like the people in this movie forgot that Black Widows were like mind controlled.
Mm-hmm.
And, like they did. This was a movie that came out like 4 years ago. It wasn't like. See,
admittedly, I was not crazy about the mind control thing in Black Widow, but yeah.
I appreciated it because then it just feeds to the whole idea of like Natasha and Elena being like weaponized against their will.
I mean, here's the thing. I love the whole sensory like thing with the idea of like they can't turn on Dreykov because of like the whole like the smell or the pheromone thing. And like she broke her nose to be able to kind of, so like that's the kind of like, I just love the idea that it was more of like it like ingrained in them and that, but like not literally like a mind control button. Like there's had to be an antidote to mind. That I like the idea of being conditioned, but not like literally like there's an antidote to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like more again, I guess to simplify. Is,
Tasha
I
just
wish it was,
just breaks all the Black Widow's noses.
I mean, I love that. It was just kind of like a good. It was a really good out for that scene. I felt, but regardless, it feels like we should have done more of like a Bucky thing, where it was like just years and years of conditioning and being brought through the Red Room and all the horrific stuff they went through there, versus like, just like we zap them with like probably like a hypno screen and they're brainwashed.
Yeah.
Well,
I guess it could have been. I think honestly, it would have been. I think the way it's done, I think you could have really like the whole thing about the leader is like he's like a super genius. Like
the whole probability thing. That's what we did with him.
No, but like it's not just like he's just very good at calculating probabilities. He's also like someone who creates like devices, traps to like challenge the Hulk and like
use the Hulk Buster thing where he had like the he had the like the sonic weaponry at start.
He's a scientific genius, but like they emphasize him being good at probabilities, and it's like being good at probabilities doesn't feel like makes you that much of a like maybe it might make you an asset in like military.
It was kind of cool, but you're right though. We could have done a lot more with him.
Well, like it just feels like was he made actually that smart? Because the thing is, that's the thing that I feel like people don't criticize, like have really not criticized about the Incredible Hulk's depiction of the leaders. Because the whole point of the leader was that he was just a simple janitor that like underwent like an accident, got irradiated, and became super smart. It's like a evil Flowers for Algernon situation. But in the Incredible Hulk, he's already like a scientist that just became even more smarter. He became smarter than he actually is. Like, do you see like? But besides all that, the leader of it all, like, it could have been anyone that got screwed over by General Ross. I mean, being the leader, like, okay, it's a continuation from the Incredible Hulk, but it, like, him just being super smart, like knowing what like it could or couldn't happen. It's like, okay, like, I feel like he needs there could have been more impressive uses with intelligence and manipulating like everything to occur the way it did.
Well, again, I think a lot of people were expecting the leader to be the power broker in Falcon Winter Soldier, and we didn't do that there because we were saving him for this, and apparently it was worth the wait, I guess.
Yeah, honestly, if President Ross was an outright villain, it would have been cool, or just someone that like was manipulating and doing bad stuff. It would have been cool if the leader was like his secret advisor that was like really kind of being the devil on his shoulder and pushing him to do the worst or the more chauvinistic action. Whereas Sam maybe is trying to be the angel on Ross's side.
Well, that's the thing. Like, how would you have felt about the moral, adding like some moral gray to like Ross's things there, where basically somehow the leader was just like he was. Basically, it was like a thing where it's a question how much of it is like Ross doing policies and stuff. Just basically Ross is like whatever he's naturally doing, and then how much of it is like then you find out the leader has gotten to him somehow, and then you have to question how much of it's Ross, how much of it's the leader.
It would have been really cool if like as President Ross for every major decision, like he consults the leader, and the leader is like his Hannibal Lecter, or even like his secret. Like he could have been the Palpatine to his Darth Vader.
Yeah,
But like Ross has to be willingly doing evil, messed up stuff for the good of the country, and it's not. It's not there. It just feels like this movie, in light of the political circumstances, which I don't know if we can get into in here, but
we probably shouldn't. Let's just say people making certain comparisons, but I don't think that was intentional. But
I feel like this movie could have made some pointed criticisms or commentary about, being in power and willing to do whatever you feel will like satisfy national interests, like at the cost of civil liberties or whatever. And I think President Ross should have been more of a villain. And I think the leader, if he was there, he either should have been, maybe the leader should have been, honestly, it would have been cool if the leader was initially thought to be the bad guy the first half of the movie, but then there's a switch where the leader is actually the victim of this all, and President Ross is the actual bad guy. Or the leader could have been like the devil or like the supporting bad guy to President Ross be the main bad guy. President Ross, I don't think is really served being like this victim at all. Because I feel like that takes the teeth away of holding like anyone in power accountable, right? Like imagine in the Winter Soldier if some of the people in Hydra were just like manipulated or like joined Hydra or were part of the cause for good reasons, and you felt bad for them. Like it takes the thrust of that criticism that Steve has of the system, and I feel like Sam, being some of his background, he should be more critical of the system.
Oh yeah.
Him being like supporting the leader of the free world and controlling whatever, it just doesn't sit right with me.
Yeah. All right. So with Bucky, Bucky's pep talk. After we have so again in the marketing, we spoiled both the Red Hulk and also pretty much kind of our kind of our Celestial Island kind of like battle. I mean, I do love that Sam and Torres they were preventing war by non-lethally taking out their own planes given the circumstance. I'm not crazy about the whole mind control thing, but let's just say under the circumstances, I like the idea of like Sam like is like a show of like kind of a show of like not going to war. We kind of they found a good solution to things. And I like obviously I love Captain America saving people, of heroes saving people in general. So I thought it was a neat little sequence.
Yeah.
Admittedly, it's kind of a weird thing. We do kind of a dual climax there, but all consider I don't know. But regardless, afterwards, Torres in the hospital and Sam's feeling guilty. Bucky shows up, and the big, very much most likely a reshoot because this feels like Bucky wasn't initially planned to be in there. He should have been, but he wasn't. Now he's busy with Thunderbolts, and we have to acknowledge that. So it's very much like Bucky shows up, makes the crowd cheer a little bit. It's like I think vaguely like this is the least crowd cheery MC movie I've ever been to. Maybe short of Eternals. But this is like a thing where you would expect the people to cheer on this one.
I mean, how many people watch Falcon and Winter Soldier on Disney Plus?
What do you mean?
No, that's it because because Bucky was like as much as like he's like liked as much as people like him, he's not really like a big character that is that well appreciated, among general audience. I feel like if a lot of people watched Bucky and the Falcon Winter Soldier, I could feel like you would be like, that's a crowd-cheering moment for them. But if you didn't watch Falcon Winter Soldier and you just watch like his appearances in the MCU, it's only just the Captain America movies and Avengers, Infinity War, Endgame. So it's like, I don't know if he's that like he's not like a Loki level character in my mind.
Okay.
Even though I like Bucky as a character, but he's. I mean, think of the fact that of the two, one of them has their own solo movie, and the other guy is like in an ensemble movie. So
it does feel very again. I think it feels like it's a no-brainer. Bucky should have been in this movie, but just the fact that we just made him into essentially a cameo feels very much a reshot cameo because you're wondering. Why doesn't he get involved in helping him out when he shows up here? But then again, I guess logically, it's like, well,
that's
as far as they're
concerned, Dragon. He's a hardworking congressman.
Well, no, seriously. Like, think about it. I think the reasons, like, well, as far as they're concerned, everything's solved at this point. They don't have the Red Hulk. They're just looking into some pills.
Yeah, but also like, if he's in Congress, why was he not at that like summit, like just to hang out with Sam and Joaquin and?
He's campaigning.
I know, but it's like considering like it just feels such a thing. It feels such a weird thing for a guy to be an active politician, and he could have been DC, just like you're trading words and.
Oh, you know what? Oh, you know what? I had a thought. What would have been so cool?
What?
If you had, you could have had a rematch between Bucky and Isaiah, like during the chase.
Yeah,
because that's again, if we ever did that, Isaiah flashback, special, we would have had the Korea fight.
I guess also if Bucky was there, he would have definitely like just yelled at Ross and like it was mind control, and then he would not have to do the whole investigation part of it.
Yeah. Anyway, I do want to highlight this. Okay, so I know we've been really down the movie. I do want to highlight a really good aspect of it for me. Okay, so two things. Okay, one, just again in the scene where I really like Mackie in the role. I like what he's been doing in the role. I know the material hasn't really given him the most to work with on this film, but I thought I think it's good to see Mackie as a leading man, especially being able to step up as Captain America. And I really love the scene where he chases down Isaiah Bradley, and it's the sad scene where he has to tell this guy that he respects and he's done so much for, if you factor in Falcon Winter Soldier, and he has to tell him to surrender and go back to prison. It's a heartbreaking scene. It's the whole they're messing up my suit, like the suit that they wore that his wife liked. It was like I don't know. It's just. Plus, that character fundamentally, it's kind of a bit of a nod to the comics where, the fact he put on Cap's suit and, that's kind of what landed him ultimately in prison for all those years and all that stuff. So, I mean, I know they necessarily, because we haven't seen the scene, they didn't necessarily do that in the MCU with the whole Cap suit thing. But the point being, it was just, I just thought it was a really well done scene.
Mm-hmm.
Just look, on the whole, again, I think, even though the writing's not fully supporting, we're not going far enough with the ideas. I do think, on a surface level, at least, I think Mackie brought it for playing Cap on the big screen. I don't know. I thought at least he was there. He showed up. He did the work. But it's a shame.
I don't know if I feel like Anthony Mackie is just such a charismatic actor.
Yeah,
and I feel like he had this charisma on point as the comedic supporting character. But when he's the lead character, it's just like. He still had his charm, and I don't know.
I think we challenged him to kind of break away from what he's kind of always doing there.
But it just feels so like Steve had Chris Evans as Steve Rogers has a level of gravitas to him.
Yes,
and the thing is, Sam had maybe not the same level of gravitas. He had sort of a different he had a more nurturing, more connecting with people on a one-to-one level in Falcon Winter Soldier. And I feel like the movie didn't play to Anthony Mackie's particular strengths as Sam. I think Anthony Mackie as Sam Wilson's Captain America, he was just hey, I'm Captain America, do my stuff. And Captain America isn't just a guy who throws around a shield and has the red, white, and blue on his body. He's a guy that represents the best of America through his convictions, through his belief in the goodness of people. And that's something that's on full display in Captain America: The First Avenger, Winter Soldier, Civil War, and I just don't see any of that there for Sam. And in this movie, the ideological conflict that could be there between him and Ross is not. It's why should I care about Sam being Captain America? And I feel like Falcon Winter Soldier made such a good case for it. And I feel ultimately, Cap War should have been Falcon Winter Soldier rather than this.
Yep. Yeah, it's quite a pickle because again, if you don't factor in Falcon Winter Soldier in this, then it's just there's a lot. Again, it feels like this thing should have stood on its own, or again, looking at the way you just put it out there, is that was the more compelling Sam Wilson story, which we're not getting here. By the same token, though, because we got that story, I'm in Sam's corner. I feel I'm on the edge of my seat, admittedly, during that Hulk battle where, oh God, I don't want him to die. And I'm rooting for him. I'm cheering when he says, you want me, come and get me, or Bucky was full of crap about the super soldier serum. It's I'm rooting for him, and I'm on the edge of my seat when he's using the supercharged vibranium wings. He hasn't used the concussive blast yet, and I thought that was really cool. But then we kind of throw it out the window with the writings. He's talking down the Red Hulk, and of all the Hulks to reason with, the Red Hulk doesn't really seem like the one to do that with.
Honestly, that would have been a great place to bring in Betty.
Yeah, that's the one.
Honestly, that should have been the trump card. What's funny is when it's a Justice League, Batman has the trump card of Lois Lane. That Sam Wilson should have had the trump card be Betty Ross. And I think if Betty would have seen, if Ross would have seen Betty in the way she looks at him, that should have been the thing that brought him down to Thaddeus Ross form. Because then, and also the tense. Here's the thing: I know Sam's not going to die in the fight. I feel like the tension should have been Red Hulk is putting civilians in danger, and that would have been something cool for Sam having to struggle with, that having to not only fight, having to struggle fighting the Hulk as well as save civilians, and there just wasn't that tension. I believe there was more tension in the jet fighter fight. But what's crazy about the jet fighter fight, in the near Celestial Island, nobody dies. in that whole sequence, and I kind of feel like the stakes should have been risen a little higher if one or two of those like jet fighters.
Well, they were near. That's what I'm saying. They could have died though.
But they didn't. That's
we saved them. That's the thing. You
successfully. But
Torres almost died.
I'm almost dying is not the same as dying. And I feel
still, what did you want him to fail miserably and everyone dies and a war starts?
Not everyone dies, but maybe one or two of the American soldiers would die, because then that puts some stakes on Sam, because I think it would have added even more pressure on Ross. And then when he's doing imagine President.
Well, it's like Bay of Pigs. We can't kill. We can't if someone gets killed, then it's war.
No. Like, hear me out, because the thing is that let's say they don't get hit by by the Japanese forces. They attempted, and like Sam is trying to get punch out and have these two pilots get out, and it would have been cool if maybe they're still would have been mind controlled, and they're trying to reason with one of them, and it could have been something where they got one out of the mind control, but the other one they didn't, and then that person died, and that would have been I think would have added some tension for President Ross. And I think when President Ross is doing this whole thing, if some reporter's like, "Oh, an American soldier died and he's under mind control, how could this happen?" That would have added even more stress. I just think in order to fuel for our characters, if you're not going to have your main characters, if you're not going to worry about the safety and that they're going to survive, you have to worry about whether they're going to be successful or not. And just them almost people that they save almost die. You got to have the stakes be such that if Sam can lose once, you worry about if Sam can lose again. And I think that's something that could have added a lot of tension to that Red Hulk fight. If as he's trying to save civilians, it's is he going to screw up? Is someone going to I think that's the whole point for when you have these high octane action sequences, is that there at any moment some people could die and do actually die. And I think that's something that I feel like the Captain America movies, there was a lot of death for civilians and whatnot as Cap is trying to make his effort. And Sam, him being I think there should be been consequences of him not having the super soldier serum and having to live with those consequences and doing the best he can. And it seems he said nobody died. It's well, I guess there's just not really much of a cost or detriment to him not having the super soldier serum. That's just kind of my whole thing on that. But I'm not trying to be everyone should die, but everyone making it out is okay, there's got to be some consequences to this whole attempt at starting World War III.
Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing too with the leaders thing, is that if he wasn't outright killing people or various mind controlling people and willing to let them die and everything, I think he'd have a more defensible position, which is so weird to say.
And he's supposed to be the villain of this movie.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's the weird thing. Yeah,
but he's not as marketable as Red Hulk. So
that's what I'm saying. On paper, if you told me, okay, so the leader is going to manipulate the president into turning into a Red Hulk. Basically, he's going to orchestrate all this stuff. He's going to nearly put the country at war. Ultimately, just to kind of as a consolation prize, he will turn the president into a monster and is going to destabilize the whole nation. So he will succeed at the end. That sounds like a pretty good leader plot, at least on paper, right?
Mm-hmm. But then it took all the way until the last 15 or 20 minutes of the movie, even less so, for him to turn to the Red Hulk. And it's well, it's I mean, for all the jokes that people make about Age of Ultron, it's that movie was about Ultron wanting to bring on a new age and having his foibles get in the way of that. This movie, Red Hulk is going to be a big part of this movie. 7 to 12 minutes is not a big amount of screen time. It's like Doomsday had more. I feel did Doomsday have more screen time than?
Yeah, no, totally, yeah.
Yeah, see, that is not at least Batman v Superman did not commit that much of false advertising. They had a significant Batman v Superman fight and a significant Doomsday fight with Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman.
Red Hulk. I mean, come on. Comparing the Red Hulk fight was a lot better than the Doomsday fight, though.
It's not. No, it's not. I'm not trying to say the quality of the fight. It's just more the marketing for Batman v Superman did not under deliver on on there being lengthy fight. there's meat on the bone. If the meat is not good, that's one thing. But like Red Hulk being 7 to 12 minutes, that's not much of a like. You should not the whole like this clearly was them thinking this movie is not good enough to market on its own merits, and you had to market the whole Red Hulk thing of it all in order to make this movie have the good numbers it has opening weekend. Because I would not be surprised if it has a significant drop by the second week.
I imagine there probably will be, given the bad publicity the movie's getting.
And this is the third MCU movie with a Rotten score after Eternals and Ant-Man Quantumania.
Right. Yeah.
It's a better record than the DCU, but man, you cannot just like MCU has to have its own standards, and I just feel like after ending the saga and just launching the new saga with the X-Men and all that, I think Kevin Feige needs to either change up or more likely just find a new successor. Maybe the Russo brothers could be the new Kevin Feige,
That'd be interesting, the Russo brothers, if they wanted to take on that responsibility, because I mean they were hesitant to come back, period. But they come back for Secret, basically, I know it's basically Secret Wars and Doomsday, but still,
but like if there's been rumors about them having a bigger role producing stuff in the MCU post Secret Wars, so I just feel like it's just not if they can make Doomsday and Secret Wars be successful. I think they deserve the keys of the kingdom, like considering they don't have a great output outside of Marvel, and maybe like if
I feel bad for them because they really did try to hang their own shingle, and I mean they have a movie coming out this year, which is I think that will determine like do they have the juice without the MCU?
The Electric State just looks so cheap though, so I think if the Russo brothers want to have any sort of legacy. And if Marvel wants to have any sort of relevance beyond just, hey, we have the X-Men, because I don't want Marvel to just have to rely on, hey, we have the big A-listers, and people are going to always see like Spider-Man, X-Men, whoever, and focus on that. They need to make any and all characters worthwhile, and it feels like that effort is not always consistent.
I mean, the Russos delivered some of the great Thor stuff,
Well, just like this is Sam Wilson's Captain America movie in February, Black History Month, and the fact that we have this is the second movie with a prominent black lead in February that doesn't do well critically and likely financially. I'm really worried that I'm really hoping Black Panther 3, if released in February, doesn't have that same curse, because goddamn, I really feel bad for maybe less so for Jonathan Majors, but like Anthony Mackie, he's been a hardworking actor, and this is a moment to shine.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You're right. This is Mackie's big moment to be a lead in a movie,
And it's not well achieved. And I know, and this movie had a lot of leaks and rumors of being not good since like 2022. And the fact that Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four, the groups have been good about those movies' quality. Like as Anthony Mackie, he's like, oh, I wanted to have a 10-year run as Cap. I think Anthony Mackie would be lucky if he's gonna have a sequels to Brave New World.
I will say this about Mackie. So I adore Anthony Mackie. Well, even outside of the MCU, I've seen him in movies and I've really liked him. And these are like all underrated movies that he's been in. And series as well. I don't know if you've seen Twisted Metal or not, but he's good in that. But there's one thing I mentioned this to you, Kat. It was like, I read an interview, like the reason why they changed up the Cap costume slightly. Just really petty. Just like, his lenses got fogged up because he wore like the perfectly comic accurate, Sam Wilson Captain America costume from the end of Falcon Winter Soldier. It was a practically done thing. Like it had like a little headpiece on it, and apparently it fogged up his lenses, and it was just like I can't do that for a whole movie. So he's only in the costume for like 2 scenes.
That cowl is very uncomfortable, though.
I mean, yeah, but it's
you try wearing that for long shoots, man. Oof, we're like Keaton had a hard time acting his cowl. Like that's I mean, I
Yeah,
can
but
understand.
are you really comparing Michael Keaton's cowl to what Anthony Mackie was wearing?
No, because like what he's wearing, it constricts his head movement. He couldn't move around in that. Like I feel like we watch Falcon Winter Soldier. He has to move his whole body to turn. He's not moving his neck. That's no. It's like
No,
it
that's
is,
true. But I'm saying, you mean to tell me in the years of innovation we couldn't have, like, that's not like a hugely constrained. Like, I know it's. I'm just saying, if you're comparing it to like the Keaton bat suit, it's like that one. That's very restrictive in movement. That's it's essentially a giant rubber head. You can't move in. Or this is like, I'm saying they couldn't make something in fabric. We finally have like Jackman in a Wolverine costume. I think we could come up with a way to have him be able to turn his head.
well, no, because the thing is the way the costume is for Sam Wilson. It's just like it goes from like the sides of the neck up to covering like his eyes. Whereas like for Wolverine, it's like something that you can pull over your face, kind of like the because I remember like for like Grant Gustin, for some of his Flash outfits that kind of were like molded around his face. It was really uncomfortable for him.
Like, I guess what I'm saying is, I know it's not comfortable. I know it's not easy, but I'm just saying it. Like, I would be shocked if they couldn't find a way around. Because I remember in the behind the scenes for Falcon Winter Soldier with that costume, they touched it up, but they touched up the mask in post a little bit, so it looked a little tighter around him. I'm saying in that respect, maybe they could finagle that a little more in the years since Falcon the Winter Soldier.
I don't think you could. I don't think there's. If they could have, they would have, and I don't think there's any way to.
Well, I'm not sure about. Look at all the other stuff went wrong with this movie. I don't think they did. I don't think they tried it. I think Mackie Mackie said, "I'm not wearing that again." If we go on this, I think him shutting that down prevented them from looking into it.
I'll be honest though. I'll be honest. His look in the movie, I do like it better than his white. There's like his costume in Falcon Winter Soldier. There's too much white on it. My only complaint, and it's always because of the complaint about Captain America outfits. I don't know why they just don't do the regular red and white stripes instead of this geometric crap. Like
I mean geometric crap.
Like it's not like the straight like red and white like bars as it is for the Captain America outfit in the comics. It's all the like kind of geometric like rhombus looking.
Well, they have to show that it has at least some armor protection there, like a little bit,
You can still have the armor look. I just kind of wish it was the typical like bands of the American flag they used.
I mean, it is still the red and white stripes. It's a little lumpy.
I like. Look, if Endgame's Captain America outfit has the chainmail armor, I think you could have also done the red and white stripes. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, look at the bottom line. So what I'm getting at with the Maggie things, that's like, I still think what we ended up with, again, look, it still looks like like Falcon Cap. It still looks right, still looks accurate on the money. It just feels like to really rail that hard against that costume as like a deal breaker for the role, and just like I'm saying, this movie's already getting enough Mac's been kind of crucified in the press over stupid little things like that. I feel bad for him in that regard, and this movie not doing well for him. Anyway,
so John Killing's comment. I'm gonna address this. So like people always say cosplayers can do comic accurate outfits. They can do outfits that can look good.
They can't act though.
No, they can. You can't move in those suits and do heavy action scenes or being rigged to like wires or whatever. Like those costumes do not handle a lot of physical movement.
Yeah.
So
well, I'm saying at least we got something that still looks accurate and still looks good and works.
I do like John Kelling's earlier comment. Like when I like the band around. Honestly, I think it's a good compromise. Having the band around the goggles be white, that I can take. Yeah, I agree.
I mean, honestly, here's the main thing that occurs to me is like it's finally adding the. I was on the fence about it, and I told you I was on the fence about this, but the third act kind of justified a little bit more for me. The helmet that like the now like kind of Wakandan style, like like the the nanotech kind of forming helmet around the head, like the full body, full mask. I when the Red Hulk was like trying to crush his head, and I like that it offered like protection in a combat situation like that. So that the helmet kind of won me over. I'm still not crazy because it's like, well, he's never used a helmet before in all these other flying scenes. And you made the point to me, like off there, like, well, it's like to help with the effects, like so they don't have to worry about putting a live action head on a CG body during action sequences.
Oh man, I definitely noticed that at the end for Falcon Cap, and yeah, it was a little dodgy. I'll admit to that.
So the point being, though, I mean, I do like the protection on, the protection that it kind of offers in theory, but still, it's like, it just feels like, I don't know, he's never had it before. And like, that was the other benefit you had from like the cowl kind of look to, where it's just going to add it kind of like, I don't know. Anyway, I still like it. All right. Anyway, I guess just in closing, we had a very kind of pointless post-credit scene.
It was basically the like
water is wet kind of reminder. Like there's a multiverse.
It was the like dumber version of the Psycho Pirate like post-credit scene in the CW.
Yeah, pretty much.
Man.
Yeah. Again, I feel bad for Lego. We're just they're putting a magnifying glass over all the holes in the movie. And again, the movie did get. I think the intentions were good, and I think like again we have potential, but it's just not tying together.
At a certain point, intentions is not enough, and these are movies. Look, the studio. I look. Marvel Studios has had a really rough time for these past 4 or 5 years with the pandemic, with the strikes, with sort of the response to the whole streaming services of it all. But I think after this year, Hope Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four are good, and things end off on a relatively decent note with Doomsday Secret Wars. I still think the way Kevin Feige has gone about in making these movies and now shows, I think Kevin Feige's kind of hit his end of his, creative output. And I think the best thing to do for Kevin, if he wants to have a good enough legacy at Marvel and to have Marvel have a future beyond him, he needs to find successors, because I think the way he's done, like he's hit a ceiling, and I think it's been pretty evident for a lot of projects, some less so than others, but the way he's gone about making movies, it's audiences want more than what he's putting out there. And I think if Kevin's not willing to kind of branch out as a creative producer, then he needs to either delegate more authority to make these movie shows to other people, or he needs to have someone else be the head guy. And I know there's a creative reset, creative haul after Brave New World with Born Again and all the other projects kind of be on a better like track, but like you can't make a movie on the fly anymore with as many moving parts as there are. You just can't do that.
I mean,
you go ahead.
Sorry, I throw off your flow.
I just think Iron Man, the way it's made, it was a lightning in a bottle, and I feel like at this point we're lucky to even have lightning show up to like near the vicinity of the bottle. And it sucks. I think like Kevin Feige, he's kind of like Shaq, where Shaq had like good runs and like in the earlier part of his career and the middle part of his career, but at the end when he was just not making like really good shots with his last team, like it was time for him to go. And I think Kevin Feige, if he can end the Multiverse Saga on a decent note and he can launch this X-Men movie, I think Feige, for the good of Marvel as a brand and for people to have faith in it, there needs to be someone else helming these projects that can do something new and interesting with the Marvel Universe. And I'm not anti Kevin Feige or anything like that, but just sometimes there needs to be a creative new direction, and I feel like it needs to be more than just, hey, we have X-Men, Fantastic Four in the same universe. There has to be more attention beyond just that, and I think a new creative head is needed. So whether it be the Russo brothers or whoever else, but I think Kevin Feige needs to wrap up his time at Marvel.
I always felt so with with Feige, it feels like the only as far as legacy goes with him, I think the big thing he has left is he's got to write the ship with Fantastic Four. He's got to do right by Fantastic Four. It seems to be like the big thing that he can do right. Um, that and obviously, I mean, like broad spectrum, like the dream is that we're gonna get we're gonna nail Secret Wars, but I'm just saying that again these are films off. We have so many things in between where we're going. Feels like Fantastic Four, I think, is the achievable dream that it just feels like okay, that's him going back to the well and just kind of like correcting something Marvel's been trying to get right for many years, or at least it's like collectively, not just like, well, we have Fantastic Four movie and it's got good bits in it, but you want like a legitimately good Fantastic Four movie, and between that and again, hopefully, where we're going, Born Again, which would be like let's just like not ignore like something outside of Kevin Feige's purview was like one of the best things the MCU put out. It just kind of makes you hope that we're heading in a direction. Maybe the Russo brothers will pick up the slack again. I'm not besmirching the name of Feige myself. Again, I support what the man's done, but it always felt weird to me that Feige knows where everything's going. He knows what the game plan is, but he doesn't loop in all the creatives on exactly where they need to go. Or like it's like he's not unifying the ship, like he's basically unifying the universe, if that makes any sense. Like everyone, like all these directors, he's burning through directors who are getting frustrated by not knowing like where everything's going and like what needs to happen. And because of that, it's like, okay, well, we want to make movies that are kind of more standalone, representative of the characters. And on the flip side, it's like, no, we need them to go to a certain end point, or we need certain things to happen. Or you can make a movie about these characters so long as it fits into like these puzzle pieces. Like we have like giant celestial hands coming out of the water and stuff. I mean, it's frustrating, but it feels like you guys has to get everyone on the same page and like on board with that vision. If they're not on board with that vision, if so many people have problems with that, there's a chance that maybe something's not connecting on the story that I think he thinks there is. And it's like it's just too like the machine's been going on for so long. He can't see past that sometimes. It's like again, it's like, well, it's worked out pretty well so far. We can't interrupt it. It's the machine that just keeps going. But Kevin, yeah, sometimes the machine needs recalibration, which could be Daredevil, or it could be friendly Spider-Man, it could be who knows what. So I don't know, but yeah, I mean, this again. At the end of the day, I know we've been really harsh on this film, and it's like, yeah, it fell short. I don't think it's the worst thing they put out. It's as a Captain America fan, again, nothing's going to touch the Steve Rogers films. I was really hoping this would be in the ballpark, though. I think it could have been. I think Falcon Winter Soldier was like showed the potential for it. I think it fell short of Falcon Winter Soldier. It fell short, but it had things that had elements I think worked, but definitely could have worked better. It's frustrating. It's not what everyone wants to hear, I'm sure, but it's just kind of where we're at. I think I'm a little higher on it than Rohit is, but I want to be very clear. I agree with Rohit's points. I do. I think I'm a little kinder on it from performance and just kind of an experience level and just kind of and respecting where it's going. But he's right. It needed a lot of work. It needed to be tighter. It needed, I think they need more perspective, like just like take a moment to stop the blockbuster machine and look at what the core story is. And we didn't do that. And in that respect, we kind of failed America, or so we failed Captain America.
I think my final thoughts on this is that I would say not to see this for anyone that's maybe wanting to see this movie. If you want to see it on a matinee showing, and if not, like, just like watch Winter Soldier, Civil War, Falcon Winter Soldier. Hell, just watch other good movies that you can rent on iTunes. Any of the good movies to be nominated for awards in the Academy. I really wanted. I knew this movie had issues, and I really wanted to come in. The thing is, I felt nothing from this movie, and that's something I should not feel from a Marvel project. The MCU has been a big part of my life, and with seeing stuff like that, it's either MCU. If I'm feeling this, and I'm one of the people that defended a lot of Phase 4 projects, something needs to change because eventually either you adapt and evolve, or you just die off with a whimper. And I think the Marvel Universe is a universe that can do a lot to entertain people and move people. And if Kevin Feige can do that, or can do it up to a certain point, then things need to change. And maybe DC can come in and sort of there's a paradigm shift where DC is the company that does the really quality, like audience appealing movies, and Marvel's just struggling. But I hope both studios can do well. And I'm really hoping I think I've heard good things about Thunderbolts, good things about FF, and all that. And Marvel's not off to a good start this year, but hopefully it'll end on. Hopefully, as time will go by, other projects can certainly raise my esteem with the company.
Let's just say, folks, March and July. Those will be the landmarks this year. Fingers crossed. All right, I'm going to use John Kelling's remark here. One could say we need to you need to do better, MCU.
Yeah, I know. You know what? I'm gonna meet up with Kevin Feige and give him the exact word-to-word speech.
All right, see you, folks.